Close your eyes. Tonight, I want to tell you a story. A letter written with love across distance and time. Not just one, actually, many. Each one sent into the crisp air of autumn like a leaf, hoping to land gently in someone's memory. This one is called I Wrote You Every Autumn. So lie back, breathe slowly. Let your shoulders sink into the quiet. Let the weight of your day melt like fog, curling over amber trees. And let it carry you gently into the first moment, where everything begins again with the rustle of leaves and the scratch of a pen. Picture this. You're standing on a sidewalk freckled with gold and rust-colored leaves, the wind trying to steal your scarf, and you've just done something absolutely ridiculous. You've written a letter to someone who hasn't spoken to you in 2 years? Maybe 3? You don't even know if they still live there. And yet, you write. The first letter begins on a Tuesday that smells like rain and unresolved things. You're sitting on the steps of that old yellow house you used to call your future, pen shaking in your hand, the kind of shaking that comes from too much thinking and not enough talking. The mailbox groans when you open it, like even it knows you're doing something you probably shouldn't. You write slowly, as if the truth might leak out if you move too fast. Hey, you begin. Just, hey. The most cowardly kind of opening. The kind that leaves the door barely cracked, just in case you need to slam it shut. You talk about autumn like it's a shared language, how the trees are fire dancing again, how the air smells like clove cigarettes and bookstore receipts, how you pass by that corner coffee shop you both used to haunt, and the barista with the nose ring still remembers your drink. She asked about you. You lie. It's not a big lie, just a soft one. You wonder if they'd smile reading that. You tuck the letter into a plain white envelope and don't sign it. That feels too dangerous. Instead, you draw a tiny maple leaf at the bottom right corner. It's something you both used to do, way back when notebooks were your version of love confessions and doodles were your love language. Historians still argue whether handwritten letters ever truly died in the age of instant messaging. But here you are, resurrecting them like a guilty seance. The walk to the post box is long, not geographically, emotionally. Every step crunches leaves and memories underfoot. There's that crack in the sidewalk where they tripped that one time and insisted it was a romantic ambush by the universe. There's the fence where you carved your initials during your "we're so timeless" phase. Right before everything turned into "we're so tired." You stand in front of the mailbox with the letter resting on your palm like it's breakable glass. You could still turn around. Just walk home and pretend this never happened. Instead, you drop it in. The sound it makes is absurdly small. Somewhere in the background, a group of kids is arguing about whether leaves scream when they fall. One kid insists, "It's science." Another claims, "It's just the wind." You smile, but it doesn't reach all the way to your chest. As you head home, you remember reading about the earliest known love letter, written on a clay tablet around 2200 BCE in ancient Sumer. It was formal and flowery and basically said, "You are my chosen one." Cute, but not realistic. You'd never say that to them now. Not even close. Back in your apartment, everything feels a little louder. The refrigerator hums like it's judging you. The silence between your thoughts is filled with hypothetical reactions. Maybe they laugh. Maybe they cry. Maybe they toss it straight in the recycling bin, unread. Still, you light a candle, vanilla and tobacco, and pretend it's autumn air. You sit cross-legged on the carpet and pull out your old shoebox of letters. All the ones you wrote and never sent. Some were too sad, some too hopeful. One was just a single word. Why? A fringe historical theory once suggested that letter writing peaked during wartime, not just because of distance, but because people needed to believe in paper more than promises. You think about that, about what it means to need the physicality of words. You flip through those old pages like a tired librarian of your own heartbreak, each one a version of you that thought you'd moved on. And then autumn rolls around again, and suddenly you're back in that same emotional cul-de-sac. There's a knock on the window. Just a tree branch, scraping like it wants to come inside and finish the story. You pull a blanket around your shoulders. That ridiculous scarf they once said made you look like a French poet. You hated it. Now it's the softest thing you own. Night deepens, and with it, the quiet ache that you might never hear back. That the letter is just floating somewhere in the postal ether, like a ghost with no one to haunt. You imagine it slipping through fingers, or getting smudged by rain, or opened by a stranger who reads it out loud and wonders who you were. But maybe, just maybe, they'll hold it for a second longer than necessary. You don't check the mailbox the next day. That would be ridiculous. It's far too early for anything. Even if they wrote back, even if they dashed off a response the moment they read your letter, which, let's be honest, isn't their style, you still wouldn't see anything yet. The postal system isn't powered by heartbreak, no matter how many songs pretend otherwise. Instead, you go about your day like a perfectly normal adult who absolutely didn't send a letter to someone who may have deleted you from their phone contacts. You clean the kitchen. You reorganize your bookshelf by color. You wipe down the baseboards. It's like grief, but with a Swiffer. A few days pass. The weather starts to commit to autumn. The kind of crispness in the air that makes you breathe deeper, even when it hurts. And then it happens. Your birthday. You almost forgot it was coming. That's the thing about adulthood. The birthdays get quieter. Fewer people remember. Some message you on social media with confetti emojis. A few friends post a blurry photo from 4 years ago and pretend it's nostalgia instead of convenience. You get a cupcake from the bakery down the street. Just one. You don't even like cupcakes that much. Too sweet. But this one has maple frosting and a candied walnut on top. And for some reason, it reminds you of them. They used to say walnuts looked like tiny brains and refused to eat them. You take a bite and think, still weird. Later that evening, you write another letter. You don't mean to. It just happens. You sit at your desk to write out a to-do list, or maybe a grocery plan, and your hand drifts. Suddenly, it's, "Dear you," and the page pulls the rest out of you like a thread unraveling. You tell them about your cupcake, about the way the frosting stuck to your lip, and how for a second you almost reached for their napkin. Muscle memory is cruel like that. You mention how your favorite tree in the park turned early this year, already rusted red by the time September ended. "I thought about taking a photo," you write, "but you always said photos made memories too neat. Like we were trying to Photoshop the truth." You include a pressed leaf. You know it'll crumble by the time it gets there, but the gesture feels romantic in the tragic Victorian sense, which is your entire aesthetic now, apparently. Somewhere in your brain, a fun fact surfaces: how ancient Romans used to celebrate birthdays with honey cakes and wine, even for the dead. You wonder if there's a version of that for relationships. Ghost parties for the people who used to love you. You sign this letter, just your first initial, no return address, again. That night, you tuck the letter into a book. You don't send it. Not this one. It feels too exposed, like inviting someone into your home when you haven't swept the floors. So instead, you leave it on your bookshelf, nestled between a copy of The Bell Jar and a dog-eared novel they once gifted you. A weird, poetic hostage situation. Historians still argue whether Sylvia Plath's letters to her mother revealed more about her or about the era's expectations for women. You just think they sound like someone trying very hard to be okay. And isn't that always the point? Outside, the streetlights flicker. You think about the first time you and they stayed up all night talking, how the sky turned pale and the birds felt like an audience. You try to recall the exact words they used when they said they loved you. You can't. But you do remember how they peeled the wrapper off a muffin in spirals, how they hummed the wrong lyrics to your favorite song just to make you laugh, how they held your pinky under the table instead of your hand, like it was your secret handshake with the universe. You go to bed with the leaf scent still clinging to your shirt. You fall asleep trying to remember if their birthday is the 14th or the 15th of October. You hope they get your letter on the wrong day, because somehow that would feel more like fate than timing. There's a peculiar theory you once read in a sleep-deprived scroll session, that we are most vulnerable to nostalgia between 2 and 4 a.m. Scientists link it to circadian rhythms and dips in serotonin. You think it might just be loneliness wearing a clever mask. You wake the next morning to a cold apartment, not broken heater cold, just lonely in the bones cold. You make tea. The steam curls upward and disappears fast, like some feelings, like some people. You wonder if they even like autumn anymore. If they moved somewhere where the leaves don't change, maybe they grew tired of the melancholy. Maybe they got tired of you loving the melancholy. You stare at the bookshelf again. You pull out the letter. You think about mailing it. Instead, you place it beneath a birthday card they gave you 3 years ago. The one with the cartoon fox and the pun that made you groan so loud they laughed until they cried. You keep it for balance. And so you go on, one cupcake older, one letter deeper, waiting for a leaf to turn, a sign to come, a past to answer. The scarf shows up in a dream before it shows up in your memory. It's red. Not bright red, but that deep wine shade that looks expensive even when it's not. You see it curled around their neck as they laugh on a sidewalk bench, fall sunlight glinting off the lenses of their oversized sunglasses. You remember the dream when you wake, and it feels less like fiction and more like a rerun you didn't ask to watch again. You dig through your hall closet and, sure enough, it's still there. That scarf, worn soft and faintly scented like old cedar. You'd sent it to them during that one absurdly dramatic October when you weren't speaking, but also weren't not speaking. You tucked it in a padded envelope with a note that read, "For when the wind says things we can't." You didn't expect it to come back, but it did, in a different envelope. No note. You open your closet floor box, the one you told yourself was just for seasonal storage. It's mostly filled with memory debris, ticket stubs, scribbled post-its with half-baked love poems, that old Polaroid where only one of you is in focus, and the envelope, still sealed, still red-tinged like it blushed too hard. You stare at it longer than anyone should stare at an inanimate object. Eventually, you open it again. Just the scarf, folded like a secret. No explanation, no closure. Just return to sender energy. You wrap it around your neck out of spite. It's too warm for scarves, but you wear it anyway, just to feel something that isn't regret, marinated in nostalgia. On your walk to the market, someone compliments it, says it's so autumn-core. You mutter a thank you and nearly trip on a sidewalk crack. Again. Some cosmic joke, on repeat. A few blocks later, a gust of wind nearly pulls the scarf from your neck. You hold on to it like it's a lifeline, which in a way, it is. Not to them, but to you, back then. The version of you that still believed a gift like this could fix something. Do you remember that museum trip? You stood in front of a case displaying 18th century mourning jewelry. Tiny lockets with woven hair inside, framed by gold and pearls. Tokens of grief worn proudly, almost theatrically. "That's so creepy," they'd said, while you'd whispered, "That's so devoted." You stop at the bookstore you both used to frequent, the one with the crooked shelves and mismatched chairs. The same elderly cat still guards the entrance like it's the gate to Narnia. Inside, the light feels filtered, honey-warm, like memory softened by time. You make your way to the poetry section. Their favorite poets collection is still shelved exactly where it used to be. You pull it out and flip to the poem they once read aloud to you during a power outage. The words haven't changed. You have. As you read, someone across the room drops a stack of books. The sound echoes. You blink, startled, and suddenly the page is wet. Whether it's from tears or condensation off your scarf, you'll never admit. That night, you write again. This time, not a letter. Not exactly. It's a note. Small. Just 3 sentences. "I saw your favorite poem today. It still hurts, the way good things do when they're over. The scarf is warmer than I remembered." You don't address it. You tuck it into the book, slip the book into your closet box, and close the lid. Somewhere between 1 and 3 a.m., you get up and open it again. And then again the next night. You read that note like someone else wrote it. And in a way, someone else did. A past you. The one who believed in symbols. The one who thought sending a scarf was enough. Did you know that in medieval Europe, knights often carried a token from their beloved into battle? Gloves, a handkerchief, even strands of hair braided into ribbon. It was less about luck and more about tethering. A reminder of what waited, if they made it back. You think about that as you wrap the scarf around your neck once more and stare out the window. No battles, just long days, longer nights, and that soft hum of something you can't quite name. You wonder if they still have anything of yours. Something small, something stupid. A mug with a chip, a sweatshirt too big, a half-used notebook filled with your handwriting slanting right. You'd like to believe they kept something. Not because they miss you, but because sometimes objects outlast feelings, and maybe that's okay. Back in bed, you nestle into the pillow like you're curling up with a version of comfort that no longer lives in your reality. You fall asleep picturing the scarf on their coat rack, or maybe draped across the back seat of a car, or maybe still warm around their neck. You wake to rain, not a storm, not a drizzle, just that steady, melancholic tap, tap against the window pane that feels like someone softly reminding you to feel things. It's the kind of morning where you keep the lights off a little longer than usual. Let the room stay dim and moody, like your apartment's in mourning for something it can't name. You pull on your coziest sweater, the one with the stretched cuffs you like to worry between your fingers, and you stand at the window, sipping lukewarm coffee. You wonder what they would think if they saw you now. Would they still call you an old soul in modern clothes? Or would they just scroll past your photo on a feed and keep going? It's been 13 days since you sent that first letter. Not that you're counting, but you are. You go for a walk, even though it's still raining. The park is quiet. Just the occasional umbrella bobbing by like a jellyfish in grayscale. You pass your favorite bench, the one you sat on together after that awkward dinner with their parents. You'd shared a muffin. They picked off the crumble topping and said, "This is the only part that matters." You'd pretended to agree, even though you like the middle best. Relationships are built on sacrifices, mostly carb-related. The leaves are wet and sticky underfoot. You almost slip, catch yourself, and laugh out loud. A woman passing you looks startled. You give her a polite nod. Nothing to see here, just someone emotionally spiraling in earth tones. You think about writing them again, but the words feel like wet clothes, clinging too close. Instead, you stop at the used record store they never liked. Too dusty, they said. But that was the charm. Dust means history. Dust means someone touched this before you did. Inside, the vinyls smell like time travel and attic secrets. You flip through crates with no real intention until you find it. The album, the one they played on that lazy October morning when you both called in sick just to stay wrapped in blankets and static. Side B still makes you flinch a little. That one song, that lyric. You buy it without thinking. The guy behind the counter looks like he was built from flannel and podcasts. He says, "This one's a classic." You nod. You don't trust your voice. Back home, you don't play the record. You set it on your table, still in the sleeve, like it's sacred. Like it'll combust if you lift the needle wrong. You write a letter instead. This one's shorter. Found our album today. Still couldn't listen to side B. Not yet. You fold it into a page from an old notebook, the one where you wrote down dreams for 6 months before realizing most were just about missing people. You don't mail it. You huck it behind the toaster for some reason. A fun fact pops into your head. Did you know vinyl records can warp if stored too close to heat? Kind of like hearts. Kind of like memory. That evening, you light a candle and let it burn for too long. The flame gutters against the glass, casting shadows that move too much. You think about fire, how fast it ruins, how quietly it starts. You pull out the album again. You flip it over in your hands. It still smells faintly of basement and potential. You play side A. The opening chords are softer than you remembered, like they've been waiting to exhale. You close your eyes, let the music fill the room, let it spill into corners you thought were empty. And just when side B is about to start, you lift the needle. Nope, not tonight. Maybe never. You make tea, stir honey in slowly, watch the swirl. You remember how they always said, life needs sweetness, even the bitter parts. Then they'd dump half a sugar bowl into their coffee like they were caffeinating a hummingbird. You sit on the floor beside your radiator and sip in silence. The scarf lies on the couch now, draped casually like it belongs again. The apartment feels like an echo. And yet, you're still here, still collecting pieces of a thing that used to be whole, still loving in the past tense. There's a strange comfort in routine heartbreak. Are you starting to notice that? The way your body starts moving through grief like it's a well-practiced choreography. Pour the coffee, stare at the ceiling, pretend to read a book while actually rereading the same sentence 12 times because it sounds vaguely like something they would have said. You catch yourself doing it again that morning, holding your phone like you expect a message, even though you know they won't text. Even though the last message was over a year ago and just said, "Hey, I left my umbrella at your place." You kept the umbrella. Of course you did. It's still in your closet. Folds like it's tired. Outside, it's peak autumn now. The world is leaning hard into its costume. Pumpkins on porches, skeletons in yards, leaves turning like drama queens. You pass a kid on the street wearing fairy wings and dragging a plastic sword. You nod solemnly. Respect. You get home and write again. This time, you talk about the time you both carved pumpkins in your kitchen. The floor covered in newspaper, seeds stuck to your elbows. You remember how they carved a sad face and said it was seasonally appropriate. You wrote boo and added fangs. You both laughed so hard, you burned the cookies in the oven. You didn't care. You include a photo this time, not of the pumpkins, but of the kitchen, current day. Same countertops, same little ghost magnet on the fridge. The past and present layered like tracing paper. You end the letter with, "I kept the magnet, thought you'd want to know." No name, no return address. You slip it into the mailbox at the corner. Not your usual one. This one's farther. Feels like a secret somehow. Like a safer kind of vulnerability. Sending your sadness from unfamiliar turf. As you walk back, you pass the old movie theater you used to go to together. The one with the velvet seats and the popcorn that somehow smelled like cinnamon in October. It's closed now. A sign says temporarily out of service. You feel that. There's a memory you always avoid. But today it slips through anyway. The night you sat in that theater, your hand curled in theirs, and a character on screen said, "Love isn't about timing, it's about choice." And afterward, in the car, they were quiet for too long. That was the beginning of the end, though you didn't know it then. Funny thing is, historians still argue whether the fall of the Roman Empire was caused more by internal collapse or external pressure. You think most endings work that way, not just one reason. A whole tangle of them, stacked like kindling until someone lights the match. Back at home, you pull out your box of letters. You've started calling it the pile. It's grown. You don't read them, not yet. But you feel them, the weight of them, the way they press against each other like passengers on a train, all going to the same nowhere. You think about the first time they cried in front of you, how you didn't know what to do, so you just held their wrist gently, like you were trying not to scare the sadness out of them too fast. You remember that, and suddenly it's too much. You light another candle, pour another mug of tea, stare at your front door like maybe it'll knock. Instead, your neighbor knocks, wants to borrow sugar. You hand it over. They smile and say, "You okay? You look like someone just told you sad news in a coffee shop." You laugh. Close enough. After they leave, you open a new page. Not a letter, just a list. Things you miss that you shouldn't. Their dumb made-up pet names. The way they always cracked their knuckles before thinking. How they folded towels wrong but you never fixed it. They're humming, off-key, always. You leave the list on your fridge, right under the ghost magnet. Later that night, you dream of a different October. One where you ran through the rain together, soaked and laughing, and ducked into a bookstore just to dry off. You remember pressing into them in the aisle, the smell of old paper and wet wool mixing like something sacred. In the dream, they hand you a book and say, "This one's about us." You wake up before you find out the title. You lie there in the dark, listening to the wind outside scrape against your windows, like it's looking for something it lost. The first frost sneaks in overnight. You notice it on your window pane in the morning, little veins of ice feathered across the glass, like nature's way of scribbling, "Don't forget," in invisible ink. You watch your breath fog in the air before the heat kicks in, and then, like clockwork, you miss them again. Not a loud ache, just a quiet one, like background music you can't shut off. You wander the apartment in your thickest socks, the ones they bought on a whim because these scream sad, cozy person just like you. You'd pretended to hate them, but wore them constantly. Still do. You make oatmeal. Realize halfway through you only have almond milk. They always said almond milk was milk for people with trust issues. You smile. Stir it in anyway. You sit at the kitchen table and start another letter. Not because you want to, but because the day feels hollow without one. And maybe that's the real reason you've kept going. The writing isn't for them anymore. It's for the part of you that still remembers how to feel fully, deeply, dramatically, like a Shakespeare character with a caffeine addiction. Today's letter is about gloves. You tell them about the time you lost your left glove in that record snowstorm, and they gave you one of theirs, so you both had mismatched hands all the way home. You wrote, "We looked like we belonged in 2 different winters, but we still held hands anyway." You sketch a little glove at the bottom. Terrible drawing. Perfect sentiment. You fold the letter with care, seal it, but instead of mailing it, you tuck it into your coat pocket. It stays there all day, a kind of private weight, like a talisman or a secret, or a really bad idea you're not ready to let go of. Later, you stop by the little museum downtown, the one with the creaky floorboards and permanent smell of old varnish. They used to love that place. You didn't, but now you do. Or maybe you just miss how they looked in soft gallery lighting, squinting at the tiny plaques like deciphering code. There's a new exhibit, Letters That Changed History. You pay the entry fee, walk slowly, read every plaque. One letter is from a soldier to his fiancée in 1917. Just 4 lines, full of longing and mud and hope. You stare at it too long. Your throat does that thing it does now, tight, like someone's pulling the drawstring on your voice. Did you know that in 1918, over 10 billion letters were mailed during the war? 10 billion whole lives passed through envelopes. Some never made it. Some arrived too late. Historians still argue whether personal correspondence shaped wartime morale more than official propaganda. You believe it did. You want to believe your letters matter that way, even if they never land, even if they're just ghosts with postage. You leave the museum and find yourself on the corner where the flower vendor used to set up. They're gone now, probably moved online. But you remember how they used to offer a discount if you said something nice about yourself. They made you do it once. You said, "I like how I love people." You hadn't thought about that day in years. It hits you like cold air to the lungs. You go home and light another candle. The scarf is back around your neck again. You don't even notice doing it anymore. It's become part of the ritual, like how monks use incense or how you use letters. You sit on the floor, the record spinning low, and pull out every letter you've written so far. You don't read them, not yet, but you line them up, one by one, a little museum of your own, a gallery of your grief, and your hope, and all the strange tenderness in between. That night, you write a new list, unsent moments. Laughing under the broken streetlight near the corner deli, their bare feet on cold tile dancing to no music. The way they read road signs out loud on long drives. That one time they cried during a toothpaste commercial. You write until your hand cramps, until the pen runs out. You switch to a different pen and keep going. That's how it is now. You keep going. The letter in your coat pocket stays there. You don't take it out. You just carry it, like a part of yourself that needs no explanation. You fall asleep curled toward the wall, the candle flickering its last breath. Outside, the frost returns. It always does. It's laundry day, which in your world means it's also memory day. You've learned that scent is the most persistent ghost, how a hoodie can still smell like them, even after 3 cycles and a dryer sheet that promises mountain freshness. What mountain smells like heartbreak and cinnamon gum anyway? You're folding clothes you don't remember wearing. Some you haven't worn since before the breakup. Before the slow, polite unraveling, one sock has no match. You blame it on your washing machine. But in your heart, you know which sock it is. You pause on a flannel shirt, oversized, soft at the elbows, the kind they used to steal from your drawer, or maybe you stole it from them. You genuinely can't remember anymore. Ownership gets murky when hearts get tangled. You sit down in the pile of warm laundry and write again. This one feels lighter somehow. Laundry always makes me think of you. You hated folding but loved the smell. Said it felt like starting over, one shirt at a time. You add, still hate folding. Still miss you. You draw a little t-shirt in the corner. You've gotten marginally better at doodles. Still wouldn't show them to anyone. You're halfway through folding when a song comes on, one you both loved. Not even a sad one, just catchy. You belt it out as you finish folding, and for a second, just a second, it almost feels like joy. You put the letter in your drawer this time, next to the old tickets from that haunted hayride they made you go on. You'd pretended to be cool, but you clung to them the whole ride. You still swear that guy with the fake chainsaw was aiming specifically for your soul. There's something you can't stop thinking about today. The idea of how quickly we forget the lasts. The last time they said your name a certain way, the last shared cup of coffee, the last argument, the last silent walk home. Historians still argue whether Cleopatra's final note to Octavian was forged or real. If real, it might have changed the course of Roman politics. One letter, a few lines of ink. You wonder what your letters will change, if anything, or if they're just echoes bouncing off nothing. You head out to run errands and pass the little antique shop on 3rd, the one you used to joke was cursed because the owner never blinked. Today she's not behind the counter, just a younger guy wearing a denim apron and a look that says, "I have a minor in folklore." You go in. You browse the usual suspects, dusty books, chipped teacups, clocks that tick with purpose. You find a little brass locket with no chain. It's slightly tarnished and warm from the sun through the window. You buy it. You don't know why, really. Just that it feels like a pocket for a secret, a small home for something unsaid. You plan to put a word in there, just one, folded tiny. Back home, you hold it in your hand for a while, feeling its weight, its quiet. You write the word still on a torn scrap. You don't explain it, just fold it, tuck it inside, close the clasp. Still hoping, still remembering, still you. You hang the locket on your bulletin board with a safety pin. Later, you light the candle again. The scarf lies beside you like it's listening. You start a new letter, this one with no story, just 5 questions. Did you know I still write to you? What do you remember that I've forgotten? Do you ever miss the stupid inside jokes? Would you recognize me if you saw me now? Is this grief or just really deep nostalgia? You end it with, no need to answer, just needed to ask. You leave the envelope unsealed. That night, you dream of laundry lines stretching across rooftops, each clothespin holding a letter, and the wind, soft and mischievous, plucking secrets from them one at a time. You wake before yours flies away. You get a letter in the mail. Not from them, of course not. But for a moment, just the briefest blip of ridiculous, desperate hope. You pause when you see the envelope. The handwriting is curly, unfamiliar. A credit union maybe, but still, Your stomach does that tiny somersault before your brain catches up. It's just junk mail. You laugh at yourself, the kind of laugh that slips into a sigh halfway through. Toss it on the counter. Make tea. Sit down and begin another letter. Tonight's will be a little different. You write it as if they had written to you first. Hey, I know it's been a while. Sorry about that. I kept meaning to write, but you know how I get. I was just thinking about the time we got caught in that bookstore during the thunderstorm. You wiped your glasses on my shirt, and I pretended not to mind, even though it left a smudge for 2 hours. I miss you. That version of us. Do you ever think about what we could have been if we just stayed a little softer? You sign it with their name, carefully, like you're borrowing it. Then you flip the page and respond. Your turn. I remember the bookstore. I remember everything, actually. I've tried to forget, and still, there it is. Every rainy day feels like that one. You didn't complain about the smudge. You just wore it like a badge. Like love had left its fingerprints and you didn't mind showing them off. By the end of the letter, you've gone quiet. Not sad, not exactly, just still. You fold the paper. You don't mail it. You never intended to. You just needed the conversation. It's amazing how much silence we fill with imagination. Later, you go for a walk through the park. Autumn is shedding its last gold. The trees look like they're undressing for winter, slow, dramatic, and slightly over the top. You relate. You pass a couple holding hands and something in you aches. Not out of jealousy, but recognition. You remember what that felt like. Not the hand-holding, the belonging. You sit on a bench for a while, trying to trace the timeline in your head, when things started, when they cracked, when they truly ended. But grief isn't linear, and neither is memory. Historians still argue whether the Library of Alexandria burned all at once or slowly in stages over centuries. Either way, it's gone. But the idea of it, that still lingers. You get up and start walking again. You pass an older woman crocheting on a bench. She's humming something off-key. It makes you smile. There's a dog asleep at her feet, wearing a bandana that says Steve. You tell him he's a good boy. You don't even like dogs that much, but Steve is clearly special. You head home with windburned cheeks and a slightly lighter chest. Some days are like that. No revelations, no messages, just breath and motion and a little less ache than yesterday. That night, you pull out the locket again, open it, look at the word inside. Still. You add another slip beside it, a second word, folded just as small. Enough. Still enough. Enough love to write, to remember, to release, eventually. You sit down to write a new letter, but instead your hand writes a poem. Unintentionally. It just happens. You left when the leaves were too gold to ignore, and I stayed to rake the silence. I wrote you into autumn, like it was a second chance, knowing well that some goodbyes don't echo back. You read it twice, Then set it beside your candle. Let the flame eat the edges slowly, curling them like memories shrinking in heat. You don't cry tonight, not because it doesn't hurt, but because somehow the pain has softened. Like suede, like fog, like the aftertaste of something once sweet. Later, you crawl into bed and find a receipt under your pillow, one of those coffee dates from way back. Your name and theirs printed together on the bottom. It's old and faded, but legible. You slide it into the book on your nightstand, the one you never finished because they borrowed it and never returned it. And you bought a new copy just to have it back. It's silly, but it makes you feel like the story never ended, just changed editions. You fall asleep with the locket on your nightstand and one foot poking out of the blanket like you always did when you shared the bed. Old habits, older dreams. Outside, the wind sounds like someone whispering, almost. The leaves are mostly gone now. Their branches scratch the sky like questions you're not brave enough to ask out loud. You bundle up before you even check the temperature. Some days, the cold is real. Some days, it's just in your chest. You decide to do something impulsive, or at least impulsive by your standards. You dig through the basket in the hallway, the one filled with random stuff I might need someday, and you find the stack of postcards. Old, yellowing, most of them from antique shops or gas stations that barely exist anymore. You pick one with a watercolor skyline. It isn't your city. It isn't theirs. But it looks like somewhere you both would have pretended to live just for the aesthetic. You sit at the kitchen table and write, "We never went here, but we should have. I think we would have found a bench with a view and pretended to be strangers with secret pasts. You'd spill coffee on yourself. I'd blame the pigeons. We'd laugh until we forgot how to be sad." You write your return address on the back. Not because you expect a reply, just because the act of it, making it real, feels like a kind of closure, or maybe rebellion. Then you walk to the mailbox down the street, the one with the creaky hinge and the sticker that says, "Be kind, rewind," like it's still 1999. You drop the postcard in, watch it disappear. It feels like something, not a release, more like a dare. Historians still argue whether Van Gogh's final letter was written to his brother or left unfinished in his pocket. But everyone agrees it mattered. Because sometimes the words we don't say out loud are still loud enough to change everything. You walk home and find the scarf tangled around a chair. It's absurd how it ends up in places you don't remember leaving it, like it has agency or unfinished business. That night, you clean your bedroom, not in a productive TikTok time-lapse way, just quiet tidying, folding, dusting, donating clothes you haven't touched in years. You find a shirt of theirs buried beneath a pile of old pajamas. You didn't know you still had it. You almost laugh, but don't. You almost throw it away. Almost. Instead, you fold it, place it gently in the bottom drawer with the rest of the almosts. Afterward, you open your journal. Not the letter one, the private one. The one where you write things you wouldn't say, even to your best friend. You flip to a fresh page and start. Sometimes I wonder who I'd be if I never met you. Sometimes I wonder who I'd be if you never left. You stop, draw a crooked heart, cross it out, scribble around it until it disappears. You go back to your stack of letters and read the one about the museum again. You find yourself mouthing the words, whispering them like spells. There's a kind of magic in repetition, like how some prayers don't ask for answers, they just ask to be heard. You light a different candle tonight, one they never liked. Too floral, too sweet. You let it burn anyway, let the room fill with something new, not better, just yours. You lie down on the couch, feet propped up, book resting on your chest. The pages flutter in the breeze from the fan. It's too cold for the fan, really, but the hum comforts you. Like breath, like presence. You don't write tonight. You just listen to the quiet, to the hum, to the way your heart still makes room. You get a message from an old friend, one of those people who orbited your life during the you and them era. Someone who knew both of you, but not deeply. The kind who always liked your posts, never asked follow-up questions. Hey, I saw something that reminded me of you too. Just like that. No context, no link, no explanation. You stare at it for a full minute before deciding not to reply. Not because you're angry, but because you already know. Whatever they saw, you've seen it too, in 1,000 variations. A coffee mug, a song, a flicker of laughter that sounds just like theirs. You walk to the fridge and open it, not because you're hungry, but because grief sometimes pretends to be appetite. There's a single clementine on the top shelf. You peel it slowly, letting the rind fill the kitchen with that citrus snap. You remember how they used to peel them in spirals, trying to keep the skin in one long strip. You could never do that. Your peels always came out jagged and impatient. You start tonight's letter with that memory. You had this thing about clementines. Said they tasted like tiny suns. I always said they tasted like breakfast anxiety. But you kept giving them to me anyway. Sometimes, I swear I can still smell them on my fingers. You tucked the letter under your pillow without sealing it. You don't know why. Maybe it wants to breathe. That night, you find yourself Googling things like, do soulmates always stay? And why do people leave even when they love you? The results are vague, unsatisfying, full of listicles and feel-good nonsense. You close your laptop and this isn't the kind of thing the internet can explain. It's the kind of thing you write letters for. Historians still argue whether Beethoven's immortal beloved was ever real or just a poetic invention. The letters exist. The recipient, however, remains unknown. You like that, a mystery wrapped in adoration. You think you'd be fine being someone's secret muse. You lie on the floor for a while, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how all ceilings eventually become sky. Just takes enough time and forgetting. You remember the time they took you to a flea market and made you try on every pair of ridiculous sunglasses. You hated every second, but laughed the entire time. They bought a pair shaped like hearts and wore them unironically for a week. You find yourself sketching those glasses in the margin of a notebook. Just the outline. Just enough. You get up and rearrange your bookshelf, not because it's messy, but because you need a reason to touch the things they never touched, the books that never belonged to them. You need proof that you existed before and after. One book has a ticket stub tucked inside, not from a movie you saw together, just one you went to alone before you ever met them. You hold it like a relic. Your life had weight before them. Sometimes you forget that. You light a candle, the same one as last night. The scent is growing on you. You open a letter you wrote weeks ago, one where you tried to be angry. You reread it now and realize you were never mad, just hurt. And there's a difference. One says, "You did this to me." The other says, "I wish you hadn't." You tear the letter in half, not dramatically, just quietly, like it was always meant to be temporary. Outside, the street is glossy with rain. You open your window and let the sound in. It's a soft rhythm, like the kind of music no one notices, but everyone misses when it stops. You write, "Tonight it's raining, and it feels like the kind of night we'd walk in silence. You in your coat with the broken zipper. Me, pretending I didn't notice how our hands brushed." I would have said something if the rain hadn't stolen my voice. Maybe it was better that way. You stop, press your hand flat against the page. Still here, still writing, still peeling your memories like clementines, sweet, messy, stubbornly whole. You dream about them. Not in the romantic, slow-motion montage kind of way. It's more confusing than that, mundane even. You're both in a grocery store. You're debating cereal brands. They hold up a box and ask if you remember that time you spilled milk all over the floor. You do. They laugh. You laugh. Then they walk into the freezer aisle and never come back. You wake up with a crick in your neck and a strange craving for Frosted Flakes. Dreams are like emotional junk drawers, full of stuff you thought you'd lost or didn't care about. The subconscious is petty like that. You decide to write a letter not to them, but to the version of you who existed when they loved you. Hey, I know you thought this would last forever. I know you ignored the cracks because love made you soft and stubborn. I know you were tired and afraid and so full of hope it hurt. You did your best. You really did. You fold the letter and tuck it into the back of your journal. It's not for sharing. It's a kindness, a time capsule. You go for a walk in the late afternoon. It's that awkward time of year when the sun still tries to pretend it's summer, but the wind has other ideas. You wear the jacket they once said made you look playfully, dangerously approachable. Determined. At the corner of the bookstore, you see someone who looks almost like them. Not quite, but enough that your heart does its traitorous lurch. Then the person turns, and it isn't them. Just a stranger with similar posture and the wrong eyes. You laugh to yourself. Second time this month. You duck into the bookstore anyway. It's warm and smells like old pages and newer ambition. You drift to the poetry section because, of course, you do. You find a dog-eared copy of a collection they once quoted in a text at 2 a.m. You don't buy it. You just hold it for a while, like a pulse. Historians still argue whether Shakespeare wrote his sonnets for a man, a woman, or for art itself. Love is slippery like that, hard to define, impossible to pin down. You sit in the corner chair, the one with the tear in the armrest, and write a few lines in your phone notes. You visit in dreams, uninvited, but not unwelcome. My grocery aisle ghost, haunting the serial decisions of my grown-up grief. You smile. It's not good, but it's honest. On the way home, you stop at the corner bodega and buy a single clementine. Just one. You peel it on the walk back and let the juice sting your fingers. You wonder if the version of them who lives in your letters would approve of how you're healing. Slow, uneven, a little dramatic. Probably. That night, you make tea and light the candle that's burned low now. Barely a stub left. You let it flicker one more time while you write a letter that starts differently. I stopped counting the days. I don't remember the last time I cried over you. That feels like betrayal, but also like survival. Both can be true. You write about the dream, about the cereal, about how memory plays unfair. You write about the version of you who used to pause your breathing when your phone buzzed, just in case it was them. You don't do that anymore. Now you breathe right through it. You huck the letter into your drawer next to the one addressed to your past self. A little archive of goodbyes. Before bed, you scroll through your old photos. You don't linger on the ones with them. You don't delete them either. You just look. Then close the app. No captions, no performative nostalgia, just a moment past. You fall asleep wondering if they ever write about you, in their own letters or dreams or grocery store thoughts. You hope so. Even ghosts like to be remembered. You finally do something you've been avoiding. You go back to the cafe. That cafe. The one where they first reached across the table and wiped foam from your lip like it was the most natural thing in the world. Where you once argued for 2 hours over whether Pluto should still count as a planet. Where you said, "I love you," by accident, and they smiled like it wasn't. The chairs are different now. Darker wood. Less charm. The barista is new. No familiar nods, no hidden smiles. Just a quiet welcome and a name for the order? You hesitate. Then give your real one. Not the alias you used when you and they were still pretending to be casual. You sit by the window, your old spot. The one with the perfect view of the slow, strange world outside. Same table, different you. You write your letter right there, in public. You don't even flinch. You start with, I came back. You're not here, but somehow your laugh is still in the floorboards, your silence in the sugar jar, your hands on the coffee cup I no longer reach for. Someone walks past outside with a dog that looks eerily like the one they used to talk about adopting. A sleepy golden retriever with a bandana and those eyes that make you believe in kindness again. You watch the dog until it turns the corner. You stay at the cafe longer than planned. No laptop, no distractions. Just you, your notebook, and the quiet ache of routine. You write 2 more pages. You don't even realize you're smiling by the end of it. You remember reading once that Virginia Woolf wrote best near a window. Something about watching the ordinary while dreaming the extraordinary. Historians still argue whether she intended her letters to be public, or if we simply read them because grief makes us greedy for unfinished thoughts. You order another coffee. You don't even like caffeine this late, but the warmth is comforting, like a held hand that doesn't ask questions. You start a new letter, shorter this time, more like a postcard. You write, "Today was calm, not happy, not sad, just quiet. I think you'd like who I'm becoming. I think you'd tease me for how long it took." You don't sign it, you fold it, slip it in your bag, and take the long way home. On the walk, the sky turns that dusty pink it only gets in late November. The kind of pink that makes even ugly buildings look poetic. You take a photo, not to post, just to prove to yourself later that you were here, that this moment existed. You think about how people always talk about moving on like it's a single step. But really, it's dozens of small ones. Like this. Going to the cafe. Ordering the coffee. Not crying. When you get home, you light a different candle. You're almost out of options now. And this one smells like pine. You hate pine, but you light it anyway. Maybe it's time to make peace with things you used to avoid. You sit on the floor, letters spread around you like fallen leaves. You reread some, skim others. You don't cry. You don't feel nothing either. It's a strange, beautiful middle. You gather the letters into a box, not to bury them, just to give them a home. You label the lid in black pen, "Autumns we survived." You laugh. You think they'd approve of the drama. Then you write one more, just for tonight. You once told me that healing doesn't mean forgetting. I didn't get it then. I do now. I don't miss you exactly. I miss who I was when you looked at me like I mattered. You tuck the letter in the box and close the lid. Not a goodbye, just a pause. You wake up and for the first time in weeks, don't immediately reach for your notebook. Instead, you lie there, eyes half closed, listening to the hum of the world outside. A distant car engine, someone's too early lawnmower, a bird doing its best soprano solo on your windowsill. You don't feel heavy. You don't feel light either. You feel leveled, like the emotional tectonics have finally stopped shifting under your feet. You get up and make breakfast, nothing poetic, just toast, eggs, and a banana with too many freckles. You hum a song you don't recognize, realize halfway through it was one they used to play. You keep humming anyway. After breakfast, you sort through your closet. It's not dramatic. You're not throwing everything out or clutching sweaters to your chest like in a rom-com meltdown. You're just making space. A hoodie they once stole from you then returned stretched and smelling like cinnamon into the donation pile. That hat they always hated but you wore anyway, you keep that one. As you fold, you think about the way your grief has changed shape. It used to be a wound. Now it's more like a faded scar you trace when you're bored or nostalgic. Still there, but no longer screaming. You write your letter on the floor, surrounded by open drawers. Today, I let go of your ghost a little. Not out of anger, not because I don't love you anymore, but because I finally love myself more. Isn't that wild? You taught me how to do that without meaning to. You pause, you underline, without meaning to. It feels important. You make a playlist that afternoon, not of your songs, but of new ones they never heard. You title it, Letters I Didn't Send. There's something liberating about reclaiming your soundscape. You remember reading once that ancient Roman letters often opened with, "If you are well, that is good, I am well." A standard greeting, emotionally restrained. But tucked in the margins, scholars sometimes find doodles, small sketches of vines or birds, little signs that even back then, people left quiet traces of care. Historians still argue whether Marcus Aurelius's meditations were truly private thoughts or carefully constructed public performance. You wonder if that even matters. Every letter, every memory becomes a performance once someone else reads it, even if the audience is just future you. You walk to the post office just to watch people send things. Parcels, holiday cards, hopeful envelopes with shaky handwriting. You don't send anything, but the ritual feels comforting, like proof that some connections make it all the way through. You sit on a bench afterward and write, I wonder if your mail ever felt lonely without my letters. I used to imagine you opening them with a half smile and a cup of tea. Maybe you kept them. Maybe you didn't. Either way, they're still mine. You fold this one carefully and tuck it into your coat pocket, a secret between you and the breeze. On your way home, a child on a scooter nearly crashes into your knees. You catch your balance and smile at the apology screamed from 3 feet away. The child's wearing light-up sneakers. You laugh, genuinely, because somehow joy finds its way in again. Uninvited, but not unwelcome. Back home, you open your box of letters. You take out the first one you ever wrote to them. The one where your handwriting was nervous and your sentences were too long. You read it slowly, as if you're meeting that version of yourself for the first time in years. You cry, just a little. Then you smile. You write one more. I've kept so many versions of us, but the one I'm holding on to now is this. You were my favorite season. Not perfect, not permanent, but vibrant and worth remembering. You seal it with a small piece of tape shaped like a maple leaf. You place it on top of the pile. Tomorrow, maybe you'll write something else. but tonight, this is enough. You decide to skip town for a weekend. Not dramatically, no tearful road trip montage, no mysterious Instagram captions like healing in progress, pulper. Just a quiet getaway to a nearby cabin you found online, tucked between pine trees and a lake that looks suspiciously like it could be a metaphor. You pack light, sweaters, your journal, a mug you stubbornly bring everywhere, and a few of your letters. Not all, just the ones that still hum when you touch them. The drive is uneventful, but the kind that soothes something in you. You let the playlist run wild, switching from sad folk to embarrassing pop without guilt. At one point, you sing along to a love song and realize halfway through, it hasn't hurt. Not even a little. You get there just before sunset. The cabin smells like cedar and memory foam. You boil water for tea and open the window to let the cold evening in. It smells like soil and old leaves and the kind of silence that used to scare you. Now, it feels like an invitation. You sit on the porch, wrapped in 2 blankets, journal on your lap, pen clicking nervously like a metronome. Then you start. You never saw this version of me. The one who doesn't chase closure like it owes me something. The one who learned to fall in love with their own solitude. You pause. You write more. It's funny. When we were together, I was afraid of quiet. I thought silence meant disinterest. Now I know. Silence can be sacred. Like this lake. Like this moment. You stop to sip your tea. Watch the steam curl like lazy handwriting. Somewhere in the woods, a bird makes a noise like a squeaky drawer. You laugh. That night, you sleep deeply. No dreams, no ghosts. Just sleep. In the morning, you write a letter with no address at all. Dear whoever comes next, I hope you find me mid-laugh, not mid-sentence. I hope you fall in love with who I am, not who I was trying to save. I've written so many letters to the past. I'm ready to write to the future. You smile. It's cheesy. It's sincere. It's allowed to be both. You read later that Cleopatra once wrote love letters to Mark Antony in invisible ink made of rose water. Scholars still argue whether they were ever meant to be found. History has a funny way of eavesdropping on the heart. You stay another day at the cabin. No writing, no thinking too hard, just being. You sit by the lake and throw pebbles into the water, like you're trying to communicate in Morse code with the universe. 1 skips 7 times. You count aloud. 7. You whisper, as if the number itself is sacred. Back inside, you pick 1 letter from your stack, the one you wrote after the cereal dream, and burn it in the fireplace. Not out of anger, not for drama, just for closure. The smoke curls upward like it knows exactly where to go. You don't watch it all turn to ash. You trust that it will. That night, you write again. I didn't expect peace to feel like this. It's not triumphant. It's not loud. It's just soft. Like warm socks and a full belly. Like remembering your name before remembering theirs. You fall asleep with a pen in your hand. And in the morning, you wake up not with a heaviness, but with a stillness, like something has been filed away properly for the first time in ages. You pack the letters, the mug, the half-used candle. You leave the key on the hook by the door. You take one last look around, not to imprint the memory, but to acknowledge it. You drive home in silence, and it's not lonely, it's restful. At a red light, you write in your phone's notes, "You were a season, I am a climate, I remain." You don't write the next letter for days, not because you're avoiding it, but because, for the first time in a long time, you don't feel the need. It's not an emergency anymore, not a lifeline, more like a familiar ritual you now approach with gentleness, not urgency. Life starts folding itself back in. You meet a friend for lunch and don't bring them up once. You reorganize your bookshelves and stumble across a novel they lent you. Creases in all the wrong places. You think about returning it, then decide it belongs here now, mismatched fingerprints and all. One evening, during a thunderstorm, you finally reach for your journal again. The candle you light smells like lavender. It's new, soft, quiet, like you. You write slowly, without drama. I used to write these letters to hold on. Now I write them to honor where I've been. You're a part of my story, a meaningful, aching, beautiful chapter. But I'm writing new ones now, with wider margins, with room for joy. Outside, the thunder rolls like slow applause. You laugh at your own sentimentality. You remember reading that Beethoven wrote love letters to someone he only ever referred to as my immortal beloved. Historians still argue who she was, if she existed at all. You like that a heart can beat so loud that people centuries later are still trying to trace the echo. You write one more letter, this one unsigned, no greeting, no closing, just this. Love was never wasted on you, not one drop. I learned how to see the world in sepia, in velvet, in echo, because of you. And now I see it again in color, not in spite of you, but because I dared to carry you through the seasons. You fold it, seal it, and place it not in the box, but in your dresser drawer next to your socks. Something small and ordinary, something close. The next day, you go for a walk and forget your phone. Not on purpose, not with symbolism, just life. And the walk is good. The air is crisp, a neighbor waves, a stranger smiles. And you don't think of them every step. Maybe every 10th one. Then every 20th. Then not at all. One evening, weeks later, you write a letter and address it to yourself. Dear you. Look at you. Breathing easier, holding your own hand when things get rough, laughing with your whole chest. You didn't get over it. You grew around it. That's better. You tuck it away without ceremony. Then you light a candle, not to mourn, not to summon memories, but just to enjoy the glow. And as the flame flickers in the glass, you realize the seasons are shifting again. Autumn is fading. Winter is waiting. But you are ready. And in the quiet of that moment, you write the last letter of the season. I wrote you every autumn, until I didn't need to anymore. You smile, not goodbye, just good night. And now you rest. Let the weight of the story settle gently into the folds of your memory. There's nothing left to chase tonight. The letters have been written. The ache has been acknowledged. And the quiet is no longer empty. It's full of the soft things you kept for yourself. Breathe in slow. Feel the stillness wrap itself around your shoulders like an old familiar cardigan. No tightness in your chest, no sharp edges pressing against your thoughts. Just hush. Just the warmth of having made it through something. You are not what you lost. You are what you've learned to carry. Think of the pages written, the walks taken, the small, unremarkable kindnesses, lighting a candle, making tea, watching light dance on wood floors. These are not dramatic acts, but they are sacred. They are survival in its gentlest form. Your past doesn't vanish. It simply takes a seat in the balcony, no longer steering, no longer shouting, just watching, while you step forward into the soft, unfolding light of tomorrow. So go ahead, shift your body under the covers. Let your muscles forget the posture of heartbreak. Let your breath slow. You're safe here. You're home. You've told the story all the way through. And you did it with tenderness, with grace, with every last golden leaf of autumn. Sweet dreams, love.